Okay, the one thing that in Chapter 11 that I would like to take a look at on this virtual machine is the software controlling software. Who can run what? Can you block things? Because at times you want to block things, and sometimes these things are hard to find. You know, like these shopping toolbars that sometimes show up? You can actually block those things. So you like malware, right? You can actually block those things, block the installation, but you got to go find what the actual installation program is. But sometimes it's not so easy, and they're normally about 3.5 lines long to prevent you from doing those.
AOL Messenger toolbar. I picked it up not paying attention when I was downloading something, and it installed as an add-on to all of my browsers, as well as installed as a program.
Yeah,
so
these things.
Program take the registry, but it's still on all your browsers.
Yeah, these things will do things for you that you don't necessarily want to do. But in what we want to look at here, go to local security policy, and in the local security policy, and keep in mind when you get to server and Active Directory, the difference between the local security policy on the computer that we're doing it on here, the local computer, and the security policy on the domain is not what's there, is just how many machines it applies to. In the domain, it applies to whatever machines we link that policy to. Here, it only applies to the computer that we're actually doing it on, which would be this local machine here. So when we look at this thing, in the software restriction policies, you go into it, there's nothing there. When you want to create one, you right-click on it, new software restriction policy, and we have a bunch of different things. The security levels disallowed, basic user unrestricted. The additional rules, and if you spread this thing out unrestricted, basically is telling us in a registry key what the unrestricted path is. And if we keep going, it says it's current version system root. And if you'll do percent system root directory of that, see where you get. And the other one is program files. So what is really telling us in that the Windows folder and in the program folders, people can run anything. If we wanted to do a new rule, new certificate rule, new hash rule, network rule, new path rule, certificate rule means it's going to have a digital signature on it. A hash rule means that you're going to have to create a hash for it. And you can do that. There are software that you can get to create a hash. Hash is just a bunch of gibberish that is based on the content of the file. Network zone rule, the easiest one to configure and the one that they have you configure is path rule. And they have you put in the full path. What I think you'll find is that if you just put the executable in there, that's what it will have the impact on. The reason I say that is years ago this was available, so we did a rule that said that people couldn't run solitaire, /Windows, wherever solitaire was, solitaire.exe. The way around that was just copy the executable from that location into your home directory. If you just put solitaire.exe or notepad.exe or whatever they're having you do, then it will block it from wherever it is, not just from its where I'm supposed to be location. This is the one that is overridden, and we'll go through this. Let's just put one in here. Let's put solitaire. Can I spell S-O-L-I-T-A-I-R-E? Is that right? Is that the way you spell solitaire? It doesn't really matter because we're not going to do it anyway. It says disallow. We can allow basic user unrestricted, and you can look at the restrictions of each of those things. And okay, and now it is all of a sudden a rule. We go into properties. It doesn't allow us to do a lot of granular control. There's no place in there to put, who do we want to block this for, is there? We just block. Who's it blocked for? Who you think it's blocked for? Since we couldn't control it, probably going to be blocked for like everybody. AppLocker down here, and this disallow however we want to do that, and that blocks it for everybody. AppLocker, when we click on it, we have AppLocker here, executable rules, Windows installer rules, and script rules. And what they're going to have you configure is executable rules. And you notice there's nothing here, and we go in here and create new rule. All of a sudden, hopefully the wizard's going to start in a minute. The wizard starts. Next, permissions, allow or deny, and we can select who we want to allow or deny whatever we're going to do this application for. So we could deny it to everyone, or I don't have anybody in here yet. We could go into advanced. Let's see if we have any users. I don't think there are any. But we could go into the guests group, because that's about all we have here, right? Skyline is my guy here that's logged on. The guest group, okay, built-in users guests, and we can deny whatever we're going to go to. Next, publisher path or file hash. Publisher, who published this thing. The path rule and the hash we still have. Path rule is still, to me, the easiest one to do. We can browse, or we could go in and put Notepad maybe. Notepad.exe. You got to spell it right unless you go to it. And if we had a publisher in here, we could add exceptions, or if we had a publisher path or hash, we could add exceptions at this point when we go through this. I'm not going to do any of those. The name would be block Notepad for guests, just so that, can't spell still, can I? For guests, and then I can create this policy. Now it says the default rules are currently not in the rules list. The default rules, do we want to do that? Do we want to create these rules now? Yes. And now we have default rules that says basically allow everybody to run anything that's in program files, and allow anybody to run everything that's in the Windows folder, which is, again, basically what the software restrictions policy is, what the software restrictions policy did for us using the registry keys. And then we have down here, allow all files, a default rule, and then block Notepad for guests. So in this case, Notepad should be blocked for anybody in the guest's account, or whatever you wanted to block there. So based on that, we could go in, and for all the students, we can keep you off the internet, right? By just blocking all of those browser executables. You can control what your users in the enterprise can do by controlling what softwares they can use. It gets a little tricky sometimes, particularly if you block everything and then you pick what you want to allow, because then you get something that starts something else, and you got to kind of follow the daisy chain down and allow the required executables. Because when you get into some of the more sophisticated, I guess, for lack of a better word, softwares, some of the softwares will then open other executables, and you have to allow all of those things to happen. But that's the basic way to do both software restrictions and application control. If you have both of these configured, and in this case, if I used, in the additional rules, if I used solitaire, block solitaire in both of them, then the AppLocker will be the one that takes precedence if you're in both of them. So if you do both and you do the same thing for both and one works and one doesn't work, that's why, because AppLocker overrides the software restriction policies. Questions? Just want to go over that one because you get the default rules, you get to this, what's it actually doing. It's not anything that's really all that complex, but it's something that really can help you when you start managing things. And then if you have an Active Directory policy, you can do exactly the same thing in Active Directory and apply it to different groups of users in the enterprise if you need to do things like that. Questions? You guys never have questions. You just want me to shut up, don't you? Okay.